Being a beginner at anything can be so hard and so scary, and while I might not be able to help you with learning rocket science, I can definitely help you when it comes to art. Hi, I'm Libro, and I've been drawing all of my life, and I'm currently 19. One of my first memories was when I was about 3 in nursery drawing on a chalkboard, and I've got a weirdly good memory, so I can tell you exactly what I would do if I was starting from day 1 again. But don't worry, my 16-ish years of practice is not going to take 16 years to talk about. Hopefully. Anyway, I'm rambling, so let's get on to tip number 1. Ignite the fire. So this is what I would do on day 1, and you've probably already achieved it if you're watching this video, because you're here and you're inspired to want to learn. But wanting to learn is only one piece of the puzzle. So what I want you to do for day 1 is create to create. Instead of deciding that you want to draw and going to watch 100 different YouTube videos and just consuming all that knowledge, and by the time you have, you're too tired to want to draw anything, and then leaving it till tomorrow and just forgetting about it. What I want you to do is just go throw something at a piece of paper. And what this will do is help break the cycle of not actually starting. Even if you're not a beginner, this is still something you can learn from, because I am still an offender of this. I do need to remember every now and then to just slap something on a bit of canvas, because it's been that long since I last drew. And it gets really scary to draw again, because what if it's not as good as I was 3 weeks ago? So I can't imagine how you're feeling drawing for the first time in 10, 20, 30 possibly years. It definitely doesn't have to be intricate. You can start with just stickmen or squiggles or blobs of colour, sort of just learning to enjoy putting pen to paper, and it starts a habit. And the key at this stage is to have low expectations, because you will need to feel rewarded by just putting the pen to paper. Whatever you create, you need to just appreciate and accept and love the fact that you've achieved that first step and had the courage to put something onto paper. So now that you have hopefully done that, it's time for day number 2, or tip number 2. You do not have to do this day by day. I'm kind of just giving a rough timeline, because everyone's journey is going to be different and take a different amount of time. You can probably power through day number 1 in about 30 minutes and then be stuck on day number 2 for the next 2 months if you wanted. Moving on from that, add your timber. And I might be about to be a little controversial, especially if you're watching this and you're not a beginner, because in the art community it is a massive no-no to trace for some reason. Everyone looks down on it, and if you are posting a video of you tracing, typically you'll be torn to shreds. But what a lot of people don't realize is that tracing when you're learning is a massive cheat code. It works on creating a habit without having to think too hard about the anatomy, and it means you'll make something better than just creating to create. Which means you'll probably be more proud and ecstatic that you drew something as good as you did, and you'll feel more rewarded because of that, leading to positive reinforcement and establishing whether or not you actually enjoy art. Just remember that if you are going to post anything that you have traced, make sure it's not another person's art, or if it is, make sure it's a base that they've made specifically so people can trace it. And 2, try give credit where credit is due, so if you can credit a reference or a photo that you traced, that's super useful. And also try avoid passing it off as purely your skill, because you might then have people wanting to commission you and they're going to request a pose that you can't find a photo to trace of. And then it gets really complicated and your skill level it slips in the commission, and then you've got unhappy people. It's a whole mess. But that's enough of the tracing rant. Let's move on to tip number 3. It's time for some small twigs. You probably won't do this on day 3 itself if you're doing this as like a week-long challenge, because I have got 7 tips for you. But this would be creation without tracing. So maybe you're going to freehand something you just traced as the reference, whilst you've still got that muscle memory from just having traced it perfectly in your head. Or possibly you're going to steer away from tracing completely and go back to creating to create. Try not to think too hard if you're going to do this, but still aim to be a little bit better than you were first time around. This is still very similar to what you have been doing, but it presents extra challenge, because now you're not relying on something like tracing or just having to start the habit. Your goal for this is to see if you have improved and see if you can convey your own ideas, because you can still freehand something you've just traced with the muscle memory fresh and then add your own twist to it, like adding flowers or random little things. I kind of feel like I'm just repeating day 1's advice, so let's move on to day 4, or tip number 4. Bring on the experts. I know, I couldn't think of a fire reference for this one, but this is where you're going to hoard knowledge, so arguably you're on day 4 because you're watching this video. But the key difference is that you're hoarding knowledge after having started the process of learning, which means it's not going to be as scary to then use the knowledge that you've learned to draw something. which will help you remember the knowledge as well, instead of just watching all these videos and forgetting it, and possibly forgetting that you even wanted to draw in the first place. I myself don't have that many videos. I would recommend watching my How to Study Artist the Right Way video, as well as my general art advice video. But I think that's all I have for you, so I would recommend someone else like Mark Brunette. He's actually taught me a lot and is typically one of my go-to artists when I'm having one of these information hoard sessions. But don't be afraid to go and watch loads of different artists, because I want you to consume art in all mediums with an open mind when you're doing this. And then try out what you think looks fun. So if you're watching someone do oil pastels and you think that looks really fun, if you can, have a go. Don't be afraid to try out all the different mediums, but also be prepared that what inspires you and what looks fun actually might not be what you enjoy using. I really love sculptures. I love watching them be made. I love the intricacy. I like being able to look at it from all different angles. But I myself, I'm just not there when it comes to sculptures. And that's okay. I've still got time to learn if I really wanted to, but I also think that I'm really happy doing digital art and having a go at watercolors every now and then. I still get to enjoy the beauty of creating, and that's what's important to me. I hope you're ready to get back to the fire analogies, because it's time for tip or day number 5, and it's time for a big log. This will sort of be like an end of term assessment. You're going to put all the knowledge that you've just hoarded to use, and you're going to have the skills you've picked up from having a go yourself. And you're not going to trace either. This is going to be the time for you to use as many references as you want, and still know that it is okay to make mistakes, because that is how you learn. But I do want you to push yourself to your limits and have a go at creating something from your imagination maybe, or just directly copying a reference if you want to, and create the best thing you've ever created. And in case you are following this video as a bit of a challenge, I would really love to see these from you. And I'm all over social media, so you can tag me in anywhere you might post it and I will happily see it. Day number 5 might take you the longest to get through, but I'm finished talking about it, so it's the shortest section. Onwards to day 6. You have a bonfire, and what you need to do with a bonfire, you need to monitor it. You need to keep it stoked so it's alive, and you also need to make sure it's contained so it's not spreading everywhere. But arguably, when it comes to art, there's no bad thing in having too much energy and motivation and inspiration going on. Just make sure you are giving yourself time to take care of yourself and pursue possibly other hobbies, so that you don't just burn out and leave art alone for the next several years. Anyway, this isn't really getting on to what tip number 6 is. You need to rinse and repeat day 3 to 5 and go into everything very experimental. Be prepared to try something new in every different piece, or try a different style or medium every single piece, because as a beginner, experiments are the building blocks that support you for the rest of your art journey. So enjoy it and take inspiration from everything around you. Fill yourself with ambition, but do not demotivate yourself by calling everything you make bad. That is not very nice of you to yourself. If you wouldn't call someone else's art bad, don't call your own art bad. Simple as that. Just remember to create what inspires you and you enjoy creating. Really pay attention to whether or not you're happy when you're drawing, because if you're not, you do need to switch your process up. For example, for the longest time I struggled with line art. I didn't really like how it looked, and then I decided to just stop doing it altogether, switching to a more painterly look, and I'm so much happier for doing that, and I love my art so much more. I still am not very good at line art, but that's kind of to be expected, as I'm severely out of practice. And you can do this too. You can switch your sketching out for making silhouette blobs that you then fill in. If you don't like sketching, and if you don't like working with colour, stick to black and white for a while. You might decide to come back to colour, or you can just stay there. Art is all very personal, and it's all very based off of what you enjoy. So there isn't really a right or wrong way. And I'll leave you with my last tip for day 7. Smalls. And this is where you get to reap your rewards, I guess. Now you're basically an expert, and even if you don't think your drawing is at expert level, your knowledge is. But there's still more you can do and learn, because now you can move away from consuming so much art, instead choosing to take inspiration and hone in on non-art things that inspire you and you enjoy. For example, I'm a big lover of walks, and every time I go on a walk, I typically find something that I decide I want to paint, and it inspires me, so I take a photo and then I go paint. And because this is an idea that I got when I was in my happy place, I guess, it also really inspires me to paint and really makes me feel rewarded when the painting's finished. And there's the added benefit of knowing it came completely from your imagination, that this piece is 100% you, becoming your first step towards an art style of your own. I could talk a lot about finding a style though, and I'm going to do that next week. And that wraps up tip number 7. So thank you for watching, thank you for hanging out. I hope these are a little bit helpful. I'll see you next week. And if you're still here, I have a little secret about next week as well, because I'm also launching new prints.